Hi there. I'm Dr. Melanie Meeker from Speech Pathology. Okay, so let's start by meeting Mr. Farmer.
Good evening. This is Olivia Lauren reporting from Searcy, Arkansas for IPE TV. Currently, nearly 1 million Americans are living with Parkinson's disease in our country. Many of them are in our very own communities and neighborhoods. This evening, for our community spotlight, we have been invited to share some time with one of our community members who has Parkinson's disease. Mr. Jack Farmer has had Parkinson's for over 15 years and has invited us into his home to learn about what it's like to live with Parkinson's disease in his community.
Mr. Farmer, what would you say is most challenging about living with Parkinson's disease?
Well, one of the biggest things is just not being able to do what I used to be able to do. When I first got the shakes, for a long time I was still able to do stuff, still able to work, and they were good to me to try to find ways that I could. But there's just so much I can't do now, and it takes so much longer to do anything that I actually am able to do. I just have to plan a lot, and I don't get to see as many people because I'm not out. And so it's just, and I get tired real easily. I don't know if it's just because I'm shaking all the time, but I get tired really, really quick. And so that's kind of hard, but it's just kind of sitting and being here a lot. That's a challenge. It's kind of hard.
Mr. Farmer, what are some of your hobbies that you enjoy?
I used to enjoy fishing. That was always something I liked to do. It's still there, but I can't really hold it real still anymore. A couple of my friends from work took me out a few weeks ago and helped me just be on the boat with them. Got to kind of put a hook in the water. That was nice. When I was a kid, I played baseball. My team won state champion. That was a lot of fun. But that didn't stick around.
What would you say is one of your favorite things about living in Searcy?
The people are nice. That's good. I can afford to live here. But most everybody has been pretty nice, and that's nice.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the main room. So we've had a little update on Mr. Farmer. I'm going to give you a little more information on him. He's a 65-year-old male who was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease 15 years ago. 1 week ago, unfortunately, he was admitted to rehab after a fall that resulted in a hip fracture with subsequent surgical repair. Before the fall, Mr. Farmer was living at home alone and does not have any family in the area. Both of his children live out of state, and he has no close friends that are able to help him with his everyday needs. He is divorced and was employed at a local district. Over the last 2 to 3 months, he has lost 10 pounds. In addition to the hip fracture, he is having difficulties including dysphagia, hypokinetic dysarthria, constipation, tremors in his legs, general rigidity, and exhibiting signs of depression due to inability to perform daily activities. His medical history includes diabetes, type 2, hypertension, And his current medications are Sinemet, Metformin, Lisinopril, Decusate, and Lexapro. It's almost time for Mr. Farmer to be discharged home. He's very insistent about returning home, although he continues to struggle with performing activities of daily living. If you didn't remember all of that, don't panic. It is in the Canvas course. You can pull up this module and look through that case again. Now I'd like to show you a little snip of Mr. Farmer in rehabilitation.
All right, Mr. Farmer, is that right?
Yes.
I'm Morgan Elam. I'm one of the PAs over here.
Hi, Mr. Farmer. I'm Courtney. I'm the pharmacist. How are you?
Oh, okay.
Doing all right?
We'll start with our loud ah. Good. Let's do our next one.
So, I see Ortho has put you on weight bearing as tolerated.
Okay. Yeah.
That's good. So you're going to continue doing that with PT. What would you rate your pain on a scale of 1 to 10?
Half. The docs gave me something to help me kind of feel a little better all the time.
Do you mean like your mood?
Yeah.
Okay. How's that working for you?
Okay, I guess.
Good. I'm glad.
I'll feel better when I can go home. When the sunlight strikes raindrops in the air, they act like a prism and form a rainbow. The rainbow is a division of white light into many beautiful colors. These take the shape of a long round arch with its path high above and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon.
What questions do you have for me about your medications?
Can I go home?
Do you have any questions for me today?
When can I go home?
That's a good question. So for that one, especially since you're home alone, we'll get social work on board to see what we can do to make sure that you have enough support so that when you go home, you're getting the help that you need.
I'll be fine.
Well, we're working as a team to get you ready and make sure that your medications are all adjusted correctly and that you are ready physically and emotionally and that you're supported in being able to go home. So I want you to know that we're working to get you ready.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the main room. We have Mr. Farmer here. He is going to let me help him get set up. He's going to be available to us to answer questions. Watch your step over those cords. Okay, let me adjust the camera for you. There we go. Good. Yeah, so there you can see yourself
Uh-huh.
on the screen right there.
Uh-huh.
Okay, good deal. All right. Okay, so now it's time for you guys to go ahead and load up into the chat your questions that you would like to ask Mr. Farmer.
Mr. Farmer, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is Melanie, and I'm going to ask you some questions. Okay, here's the first question. Would you be able to afford additional resources such as home health, delivery services, caregivers, and other assistive services when you go home?
How much would they cost?
It's a really good question. We'll try to get the answer to those. What about an assisted living community? Is that something that you might be interested in?
What?
Maybe moving closer to your family?
My kids are gone.
Kids are gone.
Yeah.
Can you
Well,
tell us a
well.
little? I didn't hear that, Mr. Farmer. I'm
Sorry, what did you say? Sorry.
Can you tell us what kind of support system you have? You mentioned that your kids were gone, but But do you have other family members? Do you have maybe a church family or good friends in the community that might be able to lend a hand?
I, some of the guys from work, we used to get together some. Doesn't happen too often now. But my family, I haven't seen my kids in a long time. And my wife left a long time ago.
So we really need to focus on getting you some support. Other than the guys from work, if we can find some folks to be a support system for you, do you feel like that's something that would help you?
I guess. What do you mean support system?
Well, let's talk about what do you want your ideal situation to look like? And what does a good quality of life look like to you, Mr. Farmer? What are some things that you want to be able to do? Maybe places that you want to be able to go, or things that you want to be able to do for yourself?
I want to go home. Just be able to go home. I'd like to go fishing again.
Like to go fishing again? I think we can work on that. If you're going to go home, Mr. Farmer, are you open to some assistance in the home environment? Would you be open to some therapy coming into your home? Maybe some of that support could look like somebody coming in to help you take your medicines, or maybe do some things that help you take care of yourself.
You mean kind of like you've been doing here since I've been in this place?
Yeah, just like that. So if we could get some of those services.
That'd be nice till I can do it for myself again.
Okay, good. Good. Other than going fishing again, do you have any other goals, things that would make you feel like you were living a good life?
I'd really like to be able to go back to work again. I really miss working a lot. I'd really like to go back to work.
Back to work. And you worked at the distribution center, right?
Yeah, I drove a forklift.
You drove a forklift.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was good at it too.
I bet you were good at it.
Real good. You could put stuff anywhere you wanted it.
What about things like support groups? If there was an opportunity for you to visit with other individuals who were living with Parkinson's disease, is that something that you would be open to?
How would that help
How would
if
that?
they're all sick?
That's a really great question. Sometimes other people living with Parkinson's disease have learned some tips and tricks along the way
Oh,
that might help you out. And I think you might have learned some tips or tricks that might be able to help some other people out.
okay, that'd be fine.
Sound like something you might think about?
Yeah, be okay.
Be okay.
Okay.
Mr. Farmer,
Yes.
can you tell me a little bit about the meals that you eat? We would want to make sure as you went home that you had good nutrition, and
No,
tell me what does a meal look like for you? Maybe a breakfast if you eat breakfast, and lunch and supper.
A lot of times I'll do cereal for breakfast, and then I do a lot of sandwiches. They're pretty easy, and I like them. So I'll do a lot of sandwiches. Sometimes I'll open a can of soup, and some of the stuff you get in the freezer that you heat up, that's pretty good too. That's okay.
So we need to find a good balance of food that's easy for you to prepare,
Well, yeah,
but also food that's good for your body.
I've never liked cooking.
Never like,
Never liked cooking.
you are not alone. You know, you asked a little bit ago what different kinds of support might look like when you went home. So
Uh-huh.
are you familiar with Meals on Wheels? Have you heard of that organization before?
I've heard of it. I don't know much about it, but
That
I've
might be
heard of it.
something that we could look into. It's an organization that would bring food to you. So
Oh.
you might get a break from those sandwiches and cereal.
That-
You're open to that.
That sounds good.
Sounds good. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about how you might be able to get from home to another place. So if you go home and you're living at your house and you have a doctor's appointment, are you able to drive? And do you have a good car that will get you from one place to another? Or do you depend on somebody else to give you a ride?
I've got a car. It's been with me for a while. I don't try to drive it much. And since I've been here with the hip, I don't know that I could.
Right. I think that's pretty smart and insightful for you to be thinking
just-
about
it-
driving with that hip. Might not
But
be.
it hurts too
Hurts.
bad trying to sit like that and drive.
You mentioned having some of your old work friends. Are they pretty good about giving you a ride to places when you need it,
Well, yeah, when they're not at work.
when they're not at work?
Most of them are still all working. I'm not that old. If it didn't shake, I'd still be working.
Right. Remind me how old you are, Mr. Farmer.
65.
65. So you were still working when you retired because of Parkinson's disease. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah. I had to quit because of the disease.
But
Yeah.
because of the disease.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about the hip fracture and the fall?
Okay.
Do you remember what made you fall?
Well, the lady that came and talked to me about drugs when I was in here just a couple of days ago,
Uh-huh.
I told her that I stood up and I got really dizzy. And then I was on the ground. And she said that it was the drugs the doctor had given me that it made that happen, that I was on too many drugs. And so that's why I fell.
Okay.
She said something about my blood pressure.
Blood pressure.
Yeah.
Well, that can certainly cause somebody to fall. Can you help me think back to before you fell? What were the tips and tricks that you were using to help you make sure that you took your medicines correctly? Some people just take their pills straight out of the bottle. They just remember that. Other people might use a timer. Other people might use a box. What was your method?
I just had my medicines sitting out on the counter in my bathroom. So I try to take them when I was supposed to.
Okay.
Just try to take them.
Just take
The
them when you
bottles were
supposed to.
hard
You
to
just took them.
open, but I just took them out of the bottles. Isn't that how you do it?
That's one way to do it. Do you ever feel like maybe you missed a dose of your medicine, or did you ever notice a time maybe when you
Yeah,
might have missed?
few times I thought I couldn't remember if I'd taken them or not. And so I wasn't always sure.
Well, that would be something important as you're going home, that we help get a system in place for you. That would be part of that support that we were talking about a little bit ago,
Okay.
that we might explore another system to try to reduce the number of times that you miss a medicine. Because, like you said, a change in your blood pressure can cause you to fall, and we don't want any more broken bones, right?
No, I don't want to come back here.
No. We've really
This
enjoyed
isn't-
having you here at
Oh, this
rehab.
is, I'm glad you did it. It isn't fun.
As you think about your house, Mr. Farmer, and you can kind of see your home
Mhm.
in your mind's eye.
Yeah.
And you think about how you've negotiated being here in rehab, and you think about how the rehab compares to the house that you're wanting to go home to. In your mind, where do you think some of the trouble spots are going to be?
Well, here there's handrails all over the place. I don't have that at home. But I was getting along okay without that. It the bathrooms here are bigger, which is kind of nice. Because mine's kind of small, and I've got a bathtub, which it's gotten kind of hard to get into. So that's some of the things that are a bit different.
Can you think about any physical changes that might need to be made to your house as you think about going home? So, grab bars, you mentioned, those are some things that are pretty easy to put up on the wall, but there might be some things that are more challenging.
I don't think the guy that owns the place will let that happen. He's pretty picky about his walls.
Oh, yeah, that's a really great point, Mr. Farmer.
He doesn't like people putting, doesn't repair much, but he doesn't like people putting stuff up. But the bars are nice.
Well, Mr. Farmer, one of the things you've mentioned, you've kind of alluded to being maybe a little bit lonely and not having your kids around. Who is around that helps you make big decisions? Is there somebody that we might be able to bring in for some conversations about big decisions down the road?
I talk to the guys at work sometimes about stuff, but I've always just been doing it by myself for a long, since everybody left. Just been doing it by myself. I got the shakes, but I can still think. Yeah. I can still figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great, Mr. Farmer, and very true. So it might be helpful for, and because you're your own decision maker and you're doing it yourself, that we be able to sit down before you leave the rehab facility and have some good conversations about things that you might want or things that you might not want down the road, because there might not be anybody in your life that would make decisions the way that you would. And so your healthcare team would want to know your take on stuff.
What kind of decisions? I just want to go home and live. What kind of decisions are you talking about?
Well, while you've been in the rehab facility, have you had any trouble swallowing your food Does everything feel like it's going down the right way or the wrong
I,
way?
I've choked a few times.
Choked a few times. So sometimes as individuals live with Parkinson's disease, it gets a little bit harder to swallow your food down into your esophagus. And sometimes it goes the wrong way down into your windpipe, which sometimes makes you choke pretty good. And other times it just kind of sneaks down without you really knowing about it. And one of the problems with that is that it can cause you to have pneumonia over time. So the speech pathologist usually likes to watch swallowing pretty closely with folks who are living with Parkinson's disease. So
Okay.
we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what will happen with everyone, but sometimes down the road, you might need to be thinking about, are you willing to change the kind of foods, help you swallow them and
Well,
keep them out of your lungs?
I don't want to choke,
Don't want to choke. Yeah. We don't want you to choke.
you know. Whatever I've got to eat, I've got to eat.
Yeah, gotta eat. So we don't want to borrow trouble, Mr. Farmer.
Okay.
We don't pretend to predict the future, but some of those conversations are important to have so that your healthcare team is all on your page. We don't want you to get on our page. The people that are helping take care of you and manage your Parkinson's disease want you to tell us the kinds of things that you want. So
Okay.
you've been great at answering my questions and helping me learn more about you and the kind of things that you want to do and the kind of things that we can do for you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Farmer, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Okay.
I'm going to kind of revisit with the group for a minute. So
Okay.
we'll let you have this way. Watch your step. Those cords. Good deal. Hello. Okay, so we're going to head back out into our breakout rooms. Now we have Mr. Robin Miller, who is going to give us a little bit of his thoughts about discharge planning and his own kind of share his own experience over the last few years with this very thing.
Hi, I'm Robin Miller, and no, I do not have Parkinson's. Let's just start right there. Okay, if I can get this camera to where it's happy with me. I am a professor in the Department of Theater. So yes, I do have an acting background. More than that, I have been someone who has been around the medical profession as a patient or more as a caretaker my entire life. So the idea of discharge planning, the idea of being a support system, that's where I've been. When we were thinking about this, I started trying to figure out, I'm estimating that I have slept in a hospital about 170, 80, 90 nights, and I've been a patient 7 of those. So I'm very familiar with how this works, and I consider it a privilege to be able to work with you on looking at this. The questions that you guys were asking were excellent. They were on point. They were the kind of thing that need to be asked and are difficult. And talking with Dr. Meeker afterwards, I intentionally deflected some of them, making it have to be times you have to sometimes spell out the difficult questions. You can't just assume that somebody understands that you're asking about end-of-life issues. And sometimes you have to go ahead and lay that out. And I've had those conversations with people and been a part of it. When you're discharge planning, realize that unless you're an extreme case like the one that we presented tonight, where there is literally no support system, you are discharge planning for a family or for a family and a support system, not for just a patient. Also realize you are not treating a disease, you are taking care of people. It is important that everybody who is a part of the support system understands what needs to be said. I was helping a cancer patient discharge from the hospital one time, and they were literally handed 14 different medicines with, this is 3 times a day, this is 2 times a day, this is with food, this is without. And the person that was doing the discharge was in a hurry. And literally it was, you're going to take this one 3 times a day, you're going to take this one 2 times a day. It was about like that. Here's your medicines, here's the sack, walk out the door. That is not how to do it. Now, I definitely understand the pressure that all of you as different practitioners are under nowadays. If you're in PT, you rarely have the luxury of having a patient. You're expected to juggle multiple patients at one time. You're caught between taking the time with your people and the need of insurance pressuring you to do more, maybe a supervisor who's looking at the dollars pushing. That's a reality, okay? Remember this, none of you are taking care of diseases. None of you are taking care of injuries. You are taking care of people who happen to have a disease. You're taking care of people who happen to have an injury. Take time to listen, no matter what it is, and make sure that the questions are asked. Also, learn to communicate at a level that is appropriate for your person. Talk in the language they understand. Don't talk down to them. Don't talk up to them. That means that you have to be careful about jargon. Don't assume that they understand medical terms, but by the same token, don't not assume. I was on a conference call with somebody who was a family member recently who was going to see a new doctor, couldn't go with because of COVID. And this particular physician, I think, is an excellent physician, not somebody local, but both the person and I were like, okay, we're not idiots, because we were talked down to as we were there. Try to match your people, because not only are you dealing with the disease, you are dealing with the emotions. And people are on edge when they see you. They are scared when they see you. They are hurting, and that makes those feelings worse. You're dealing with depression, but you're dealing with fear, you're dealing with anxiety, you're dealing with hope. And hope is what you are trying to give them. Bottom line, as a practitioner, you are healing their bodies, but many of you are believers. More than that, you are providing them hope that they can live well. You're giving them what they need to live well, and you're helping them. And often you are privileged to help them with end of life. I've been privileged to be with people when they went home to meet God. And everyone that I've been with has been somebody I knew that I was very comfortable with them meeting God. Many of you will have that privilege, or you will be close to it. Remember, you're taking care of people. You've been given a gift of skills in medicine. Use them. And use them to God's glory. It's been a privilege to be with you tonight. Thank you very much.